Hey and welcome, msKIRAspeaks. Before we get started, I ask that you watch the videos till the end, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Listen guys, I apologize for this video getting up so late. Life has really just been lifing, and I'm gonna leave it at that. We're back again for another episode of Bel-Air, Season 1, Episode 9, Can't Knock the Hustle. Now, I must say, I love that at least half of the episodes this season are song titles. Just another thing that I love about this show. Now, this was Uncle Phil's episode, y'all. Let's get into it. So as the episode opens, we see Will and he's struggling with his tie when Jeffrey comes in. Uncle Phil has sent him in to hurry Will along. Will asks Jeffrey for help, and he helps him to fix his tie. And it was such a brief but sweet moment for me. I'm a single mother of 3 boys, so I really appreciated this scene. Will thanks him and he asks him about what he asked for, and G says it's in the works, but today is about Uncle Phil. So Will, he throws on his jacket and he heads on down the stairs. And like I said at the end of my last review, they are going to church, y'all. Everyone is looking nice, and the ladies, they got their nice little church hats on. And we find out that Carlton is supposed to do a solo, but he doesn't seem so excited. Will didn't know he sang, and Uncle Phil tells him Carlton has an amazing voice. Ollie, who plays Carlton, he actually sings in real life. So they're waiting for Hillary to head out, and she arrives and she's looking right, y'all. Now the skirt is a little short for my taste, but nobody asked me. So Uncle Phil, he takes a moment and he looks at his family and he realizes how blessed he is. And Will gives him a "won't he do it?" before they head on out the door. So as they're arriving at the church, Will is asking Carlton, like, what's your singing style? Are you so-and-so from Boys to Men? You know how Will is. So they run into Reverend Lamont, and everybody's got something for Reverend Lamont this episode, y'all, or at least the beginning of the episode. Carlton seems a little nervous, and Ashley, she catches Rev on the way in and says that the church needs to put more people that identify as LGBTQ+ in higher positions beyond the choir director. Rev says it's a thoughtful observation and a work in progress. He'll keep it in mind. So Uncle Phil, he grabs the Rev, he pulls him to the side because he wants to know about the church mobilizing their Turn Out the Vote shuttle services for this special election. Reverend tells him he'll see what he can do. Hillary, she runs into her old friend Ivy, who's played by Carucci, and it looks like Hillary hasn't been to church in a minute. The two of them, they catch up, and Hillary brings up that Ivy has 10 million followers. Ivy says she loves her stuff, and Hillary says that they should do a collab if she'd be open to it. Ivy, she looks reluctant when Uncle Phil walks over and says that they gotta get inside. We'll talk, Ivy, but it looks like they won't. So Will asks Carlton for a minute as they're going into the church, and Will starts speaking in metaphors, and Carlton's like, what is it that we're talking about here? My dad, Will tells him. He has the opportunity to find out more, but he doesn't know if it's a good idea. And Carlton says, yeah, that's big. And he doesn't know what to say, but you're in a place where people come to see signs and find answers. Carlton had his own stuff going on, but I appreciated that they had that little conversation between the two of them. So Uncle Phil, he sits next to Hillary, and he says that Stephen told him that Thirsty Chef has been scrubbed from every corner of the internet. Yes, now you both can relax and I'll be perfect till election day, Hillary says. He tells her he knows it's been hard, but they're proud of her and how she handled herself with Kylo and getting out of the contract. Maybe law school is in your future. Not exactly, Uncle Phil. I don't know that Hillary is necessarily out of the contract. They haven't made that part too clear. So Will, he tells Aunt Viv, he's like, listen, my mom said that you used to sing off key back in the day in church. And Aunt Viv is like, unlike Vi, I can harmonize. So the service starts, and after some words from the Reverend, he turns it on over to the choir. And it looks like none of the Banks have been to church in quite some time. Anywho, Carlton, he starts singing and he's sounding smooth. Then he starts to get a little nervous and his voice cracks, and all I can see is a little memes that say, take your time, take your time. So he just could not seem to pull it together, and he walks off. Aunt Viv, she gets up to go check on him. Later at home, Ashley's on her phone when Aunt Viv comes in, and she asks if Carlton's okay. Viv tells her he's fine, and then she says that she noticed that she's gone from climate change to champion LGBTQ causes. She says, she's just checking in. Civil rights and climate change are both vital social issues. She hasn't traded one for the other. And it's clear that Aunt Viv knows what's up, but Ashley is not ready to talk about it. She tells her she can talk to her about these issues or other issues, whatever's on her mind. So Will and Hillary, they're in the kitchen and they're discussing Carlton, and Will finally reveals that Carlton likes to party with Coke and Xanax. Now, this was the first time that we got confirmation, because it had been speculation prior to this, that Carlton was also on Coke. Hillary is shocked. She had no idea. Will says, yeah, it gets scary. So Hillary tells him to go talk to him. And Will's like, I don't think he wants to talk to me. But Hillary says, sometimes family means checking in with people, whether they want that or not. She says she hasn't seen what he's seen, so it would be different coming from her. And I kind of felt her on this one, because up until this point, Will hadn't told anybody else about it. So I'm not quite sure how Carlton would have reacted had she came in and started questioning him. So I gave her that one. So Will, he goes on up to have that conversation with Carlton. He asks if he's okay, and Carlton's like, he's fine. Will just wanted to know what happened today. So he stops playing a video game and he tells Will, I didn't have any breakfast. The church was hot as hell and I felt dizzy. And I didn't want anybody to see me fall out. And Will's like, okay. Carlton's like, what? And Will's like, last time you got stage fright, you were supposed to do that poem with Lisa. Instead, you were doing coke in your closet. He could tell he was nervous today. And Carlton says he wasn't nervous. He says he suffers from anxiety, and he has anxiety about telling people about that. It just builds, and then he uses the drugs to cope with it. He says he didn't even use them today. He probably should have. He says he knew he struggled. All the signs were there, but his dad was just so excited to have him sing. He just wanted to make him proud of him. The grades, the sports, and it sounds like Uncle Phil is the one that is giving Carlton the anxiety. It's like we talked about last episode, that struggle to attain perfection. It's just so unrealistic. And poor Uncle Phil, he has put that on Carlton. So Will tells Carlton, your dad thinks the world of you, and that if he needs him, he's there for him. Whenever, wherever. You struggling? Let me know. You think you need them drugs? Let me know. No judgment. It won't be so heavy if you let me carry it with you. And Carlton says he appreciates it. He just needs a minute to himself right now. So Will, he walks away, and Carlton, he looks towards that closet. And I love that they had this conversation. It is super important for shows to discuss mental health. We have swept it under the rug for far too long, and it's time to talk about it. So Hillary, she has Jazz sneaking into the influencer house, chock full of cameras to get her things. Jazz was hoping that Kylo was there so he could give him a slap real quick. Hillary doesn't want him to catch a case, but she appreciates it. He says he's been looking for an opportunity to impress her. He asks why she doesn't borrow the money from her dad. She says she needs to do things on her own. So after they're done, Jazz says, you could come on over to my place and I'll cook for you. And Hillary says, how about you swing by this bungalow at this 5-star hotel I'm staying at and we order room service? Jazz is down. So Will is in his room when G comes in with the envelope containing a comprehensive report on his father. He's still alive and Will is trying to take it all in. He asks Jeffrey if he's seen the contents. He has. Will, he's unsure, and G tells him if he does pursue this, it will not only change his life or his father's, it will impact the entire family. I really want to know what's in that envelope, y'all. We need the deets on Lou ASAP. What do you guys think the deal is with Lou? Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. So Stephen, he's in Uncle Phil's study with Phil and Jeffrey, and he has photos of Fred and Angela. The photos prove that Fred cheated on Lisa's mom while she was dying of lupus. Stephen says it will cost him the female vote. Uncle Phil says, is this an option or a game plan? Jeffrey, he's quiet. Phil says, it feels too personal. So Stephen starts to talk about some unsavory clients that Phil has represented, or the possibility of painting a picture that he and his family are too rich and out of touch. Phil asks Jeffrey to say what's on his mind. Jeffrey tells him, you want it so bad, just admit it. He says that Phil prefers to feel like he's been talked into doing things that cross the line. And if no one else will tell him, Jeffrey will. That's a good friend. Stephen says he came there for debate prep, not for a therapy session. Jeffrey apologizes, and Stephen tries to convince Phil that playing nice isn't going to cut it. So Vivian, she walks into her fellowship interview, and we see the second Aunt Viv from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and the OG Aunt Vi. Vivian is surprised to see them. She says it's usually white men sitting in their seats. And they say, and it's usually a 25-year-old sitting in yours. So much has changed in the art world since Vivian left. They want to know why she deserves the fellowship. And Viv, she starts to describe her paintings and her style. And we see a painting that is a nod to the OG Uncle Phil in her portfolio. OG Vi says, we know all that. Why'd you stop painting for so long? So Vivian says, I'm supposed to say that the demands of marriage and motherhood swept the paintbrush out of my hand. But the truth is, she got tired of all the battles she had to face being a Black female artist once the painting was done. Painting, that's the easy part. But once the paint dries, you have to explain who you are, explain your work. She got tired of all the fighting that you had to do to be noticed. Viv says she got tired of trying to twist whatever she was doing to fit whatever was popular at the time. Then what brought you back? The second Aunt Viv asked. Vivian says her nephew moved in with them, and he is just so free and so unapologetically himself. He has a fire in him that she used to have. She realized she could still have that. It got her excited to create again. Now her perspective is her work can resonate out in the world without her having to define it on anyone's terms. The ladies, they look impressed, and they tell her they decided before she came in that they wanted to offer her the fellowship. Viv tears up and she's so excited. They can't make it official until she takes the time to think about what the demands of accepting the fellowship would mean to her. Aunt Viv asks, what demands do you mean? Which kind of confused me because she and Reed already had this conversation in another episode, but okay. Travel, speaking engagements, press. So they give her 24 hours to think on it and make her decision. Will, he pays Uncle Phil a visit in the study, and he has the envelope that Jeffrey gave him in his hand. And I was like, no, Will, if anything, give it back to Jeffrey. This is going to be a problem. Will tells him that he asked Jeffrey to find his father, and he did. He told him that there could be some stuff that could cause some problems in that envelope. Will tells him he decided not to open it and that he's been more of a father to him than any man ever has. Uncle Phil tells him he loves him like he's his and that he's thankful that he is in their lives and family. So they hug and Will gives him the envelope. Uncle Phil tells him he's proud and he's always there for him. So Will, he's playing the piano when Carlton comes in and asks him if he's okay. He tells him that he decided not to learn any more about his father. He says he's happy and he feels like whatever he learned would hurt that. Carlton asks, and that's why you're playing a sad song? Will says that's how he feels every time he thinks about his pops. Carlton says, you can still feel the same way even if your dad is part of your life. Ouch. He tells him that he stopped him from using today and he thanks him. And Will says he's glad that he can help. He's proud of him and he says, you should toss that stuff. Carlton says he flushed it. So Carlton, he invites him to grab a bite, but Will says he was supposed to be getting together with Lisa, who's not answering her phone. Carlton says that he and Lisa have eased the communication since the election. And he's like, listen, her phone probably died. She's pretty bad with that. Then we see why Lisa is not answering her phone. She is telling Fred that he is all wrong about Will, but Fred says he is trouble. Judge Robertson sent him some stuff after he decided to run. Will was arrested after a fight in Philadelphia. There was a gun involved. He tells her Uncle Phil reached out to Robertson for a favor to make it go away, which Robertson did. Lisa thinks it's low and she doesn't believe him. He tells her a man that would circumvent the law like that doesn't deserve to be a DA. Now, from a moral standpoint, I tend to agree, but folks will go out on a limb for their family, and he would do the same. He tells her to go ask Will, and then that better be the last time that they speak. Jeffrey pays Uncle Phil a visit in the study, and Uncle Phil has that envelope in his hand, y'all. Jeffrey laughs and asks how he got his hands on it. Uncle Phil tells him Will gave it to him. Even he realizes he doesn't need Lou in his life right now. Or maybe he was too scared to open it alone, Jeffrey suggests. Maybe instead of taking the answer from him, you should have helped him to confront the truth. Uncle Phil asks why. I asked you not to do this and you went behind my back. Jeffrey says he was uncomfortable with his ask. So all of a sudden you don't trust me to do what's right? What I'm saying is the boy has a right to know. You work for me. And I hate that Uncle Phil plays that card. Jeffrey says his real job is to protect Uncle Phil and his family, and sometimes the two things don't align. Protect them from me, from your ambitions, because once those things start stirring up inside you, everyone gets steamrolled. BS, Uncle Phil says. The only reason you sided with Lou is because you feel guilty about leaving your own boy behind. Jeffrey steps up in his face, and then he backs away. He tells him he's watched him attain every dream he's ever wanted, but the finish line keeps moving. So they go back and forth, and Jeffrey, he lays it on him. Your wife's dreams drowned underneath yours. Your son didn't even get a chance to develop his dream because he's just an extension of yours. Your daughter, hey, Phil says, because clearly this is where he draws the line, because what you're not about to do is talk about Honeybee. So Phil tells him he's treading on dangerous territory, and Jeffrey continues. Fred Wilkes, he's a flawed man, but he's also a good man. And you're going to destroy him because when push comes to shove, you always do whatever it takes, even at the expense of the people that love you. Uncle Phil says he can't trust him anymore and he's fired. Jeffrey says, if you fire me, it'll raise too many questions. Now, that's not where I thought Jeffrey was going to go with that one. I thought Jeffrey's going to be like, bet, because if you want to come at me, I can throw you right on under the bus. But he doesn't. So let's just say I'm going on an immediate leave of absence. Phil says, you had a family emergency you had to attend without delay. The two men, they dap it up and they give each other a tearful hug. Prove me wrong, Phil. Because if you don't, your family is going to split under the pressure. Good conversation, good. Because it could have went left, but they kept it cool. They kept it cute. They expressed themselves. This is how you're supposed to express yourself, people. Phil, he pays Vivian a visit in her creative space, and he tells her Will came to him earlier, and he didn't want to know anything about his father. Vivian is surprised, and she wants to know why. He just doesn't want to know. Maybe it was church, or maybe that no good will come of this. He tells her to tell Vi. Vivian isn't sure that it's settled. Phil says he had it out with Jeffrey, and it should be settled until Will unsettles it. It's his choice. Vivian asks about Jeffrey's family emergency. Phil says he's not exactly sure. Viv says it can't come at a worse time. He's got the race, and if she gets the fellowship, they'll need someone to look out for the kids. Phil says they can handle the kids. They always do. She says it's not so simple. Viv thinks that maybe she shouldn't take the fellowship. Phil wants her to let him help her. He doesn't want her to worry. So later, when Aunt Viv is painting, she looks over at the photo of the kids and the family, and she gets overwhelmed. She calls Janice. She tells her she's been doing a lot of thinking about the guidelines. Then she unloads. Her husband is running for district attorney. He has a real shot at winning. Her nephew moved in, and it's been an adjustment. Her son, who dealt with anxiety in the past, is starting to struggle again. Then she has a daughter who's walking around hiding secrets from her because she thinks she can't handle it, and another daughter who's sharing all her business on social media. When she puts it all together, she doesn't think that it's the right time. Janice stops her and tells her their policy is to give artists 24 hours to consider whether to accept or not. They have good reason to be strict about that policy. She can't accept an answer from her right now and tells her they'll speak tomorrow after she's fully considered the matter. So Will and Carlton, they're in the kitchen and they're talking about food when the doorbell rings. There's no Jeffrey, and these two are taking too long to answer, so it's Lisa, and she lets herself in. Tell me this isn't you, Will. He asks how she found out. Carlton, he tries to interject on Will's behalf and tell her it's not what it looks like, which I totally appreciated. But Lisa tells him, shut up. Are you going to speak? She is upset and Will asks to speak to her in private. In his room, he apologizes and he says he was trying to respect Uncle Phil's wishes. She says she hid nothing from him. She took up for him. They had sex. He says he'll tell her everything. She asks if he shot someone. He tells her no. He shot a gun into the air to break up a fight. So your uncle did break the law. Yeah, to help me or I wouldn't be here, Will says. She thanks him for finally being honest with her, and she tells him that her dad knows and he's going to use it against his uncle at the debate. Will says you can't let that happen, but she tells him it's too late. So at the debate, Judge Robertson, he pays Phil a visit. They had a rock-solid plan. Too bad he couldn't stick to it. Uncle Phil says, turns out he's done better without his endorsement, and he says it feels good to be his own man. Robertson reminds him his favorites got his nephew out of prison. The high road has no place in politics. And he tells him it didn't have to be this way. And what I didn't understand was why the judge was so comfortable with the truth coming out when it also implicates him. So Carlton and Will, they're trying to get to Uncle Phil and tell him what's going on, and security won't let them in. They're calling, they're texting, they're screaming and yelling, and finally Stephen comes to the door because he got a text and he escorts them in. So Stephen steps away and they finally get to talk to Uncle Phil, and Carlton tells him, you need to call off this debate. Fred Wilkes knows about Will's arrest and the strings you pulled to get him out of trouble. Uncle Phil says, how does he know? And Will tells him that Lisa says a judge told him. Phil, he looks upset, and Carlton asks what he's going to do. He tells them, don't worry about it. He knows how to handle it. He thanks them for the heads up. Will apologizes, but Uncle Phil says he has no regrets. So the candidates, they make their way to the stage to give their opening statements. Uncle Phil won the coin toss, so he'll go first. And I was like, please don't let him start mudslinging first if that's going to be his approach. But he starts by saying when he launched his campaign, he did so with his family by his side. He talks about putting the needs of the family before our own desires. He strived to put his family ahead of all else. He's failed at times, but not today. Today, I am withdrawing from the race to be next district attorney. I need to be a dependable husband and father more than I need to be district attorney. He asked the press to respect the privacy of his family. He gives Fred his support, and he asked that those that were going to vote for him to cast their ballots for Fred. So between the words that Jeffrey said, plus the risk of Will's secret getting out, that all spoke to him. He did his family proud. And he not only managed to save his family first and foremost, but he also saved Fred's, because you know Lisa would have been devastated all over again. I told you this was Uncle Phil's episode. So he shakes Fred's hand and he congratulates him, and he goes over to his family. He says to Vivian, promise me you'll take that fellowship. You're going to be great. And they kiss and the whole family hugs, and that is where we end. Another good episode, y'all. Again, I apologize for it being so late. What are your thoughts? Please drop them down below in the comments. I can't believe that there's one episode left and then the season is over. It went by so quickly. I hope that you'll come back and join me for my review of episode 10, the season finale. Lou is coming, y'all. If you have made it this far, put a heart emoji, any color you want, down in the comments, because this family sure has a lot of it. While you're here, please check out some of my other content. Thank you. And before you go, please like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate y'all. Peace.